I have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, so EA essentially put out a PR statement or had a quote on some article that basically said that single player games are still important to their portfolio. Okay? This wasn't enough for a story, so we didn't really cover it, but I'm going to cover it here. Yeah, zero question is honestly, are single player games still important to the gaming industry?
For me, I want to say that single player games are important to an artistic aspect, um,
Okay.
especially
Yeah.
um, with Nintendo stuff in particular. They have just turned single player games into such a fine craft.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, granted, their games aren't the hardest. Their games um, aren't just like something to wow you over with like a absolutely magical experience um, to the vein of like Elden Ring or whatever. But Nintendo games tend to be art from the fact that they're just easily accessible to everyone. Everyone can play them, and everyone can therefore just get to talking about them and sharing their experiences with their fellow friends and family and whatnots.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I kind of see the importance of single player games, that you can make them very accessible to the masses, and just at that point you can easily build brand loyalty from that, and that's what we see from Nintendo. But on the opposite end, you also have extremely difficult games that emphasize the struggle, that you need to struggle as a human being to see your struggles bear fruit towards the end, and that's seen in games like Bloodborne, Demon Souls, um, the more recent Elden Ring. So just you've got games like that that really just kind of focus on your human involvement in the struggle and putting your own emotions and investing them into this single player world and
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Right. Um. Yeah, like artistically, yes, absolutely, they're still important. Fan wise and satisfying gamers who have been used to playing single player games all their lives, yes, very important. But I'm talking more along the business side of the gaming industry, and I honestly, I honestly think that no, it really isn't important to a certain extent, unless you can get gobs of DLC from the single player game. Um, it's not vitally important to people in the gaming industry, really, because they want to. Because the industry now is all about uh, games with a shelf life that you can constantly monetize and constantly engage with people to play it. With maybe the exception of Genshin Impact, the rest of the games are all multiplayer games. So we're talking Fortnite, we're talking Warzone, we're talking, let's say, Destiny. We're talking like those games. Like those are the more important games that companies are going to invest so much money into making the best that they can make in order to make much more money. So now, do I think that single player games are going to go away? No, because you still want to have the credibility of making those types of games. But I think as time wears on, less and less games are going to be those single player games. I think you're going to see a lot more of, let's say, the mid tier companies, or basically companies spending less and less money on those games to create them, with maybe exceptions to like well-known properties like Devil May Cry, or maybe like a Star Wars brand to have a single-player game. That they'll do that with those, or Final Fantasy. I think those are going to be the exceptions, and the rule is going to be when it comes to spending like a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money. It's going to be towards multiplayer games, and that's it. The single-player games will have much smaller budgets, and if they have no multiplayer at all, it's going to be even smaller than that. Um, Artistically, yes, it'll always be important, and it will always be there. and even bigger companies that said the quiet part out loud, like EA did years ago, um, you know, they're still going to make single player games, because how else are you going to have these studios cut their teeth into making like concepts of certain games to see if they'll work in a multiplayer environment? In regards to like it being the big tentpole games, I think Elden Ring will be. Well, Elden Ring is multiplayer to an extent too, so that kind of doesn't count. But um, I think in 5 to 10 years, the big budget single player games without multiplayer is gonna die. Is gonna be gone soon. They're not gonna go away. It's just that when someone spends an ass load of money on a Last of Us, they're gonna require it to have multiplayer. And I know some are going to say, but what about God of War? Yeah, there are going to be exceptions because they have a legacy behind them. But for the most part, they're going to be multiplayer. Is my take on it.
Yeah, and I would say that's going to be likely with just where the gaming business is going. Just they want something that is going to basically have an infinite revenue stream. And believe me, for anyone who's listening to us, I know it probably pains you all to hear it, but
Right.
I just have this gut feeling that just that's where the gaming business is right now. They're just going to say, "Hey, can this particular can this particular IP or franchise bring in infinite revenue?" And if the answer is no, then they're just gonna turn their nose up on it like it's a steaming pile of shit and go, "Well, fuck that. I don't want any part to do with this.
Yeah.
I refuse." And then just the dreamy-eyed game developer who wants to make a single-player game is just going to be turned away.
Right.
Now, if something absolutely catastrophic happens to the gaming industry, that they go, okay, so people are sick of mono gaming on multiplayer games. I guess back to high art and great single-player experiences. If that happens, who knows?
Yeah. And well, I've predicted that will probably happen if the government regulates the industry to a certain extent, but that will be the only time when it happens. Unless a lot of companies go Genshin Impact style and say, hey, we're going to make this awesome single player game with gotcha elements. So instead of going into a chest and getting a weapon, you go into a chest, get currency, and then you use that currency to spin a wheel, and hopefully you'll get the good sword. I think that for big budget games, I think that's the route they'll go. And I know some of you are going to say, but Sony, they have Spider-Man, Wolverine, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us. Yeah, but that's different because Sony wants you to buy their system. They are more interested in you buying their system. The games, unless the game sells terribly, the ancillary, the game selling well is ancillary to them buying systems. So they're going to spend gobs and gobs of money on those games specifically to get people like you to purchase their system. That is the key thing, for you to purchase the PlayStation. That's what they're doing. Same thing Microsoft is doing with Starfield. They're going to fund that, and they're going to put more money into it because there are hardcore gamers who want that game, and it will sell systems. That is the only time where I think that it will happen. But if we're talking EA, Ubisoft, like those companies specifically, Take-Two, without multiplayer or some kind of microtransaction that they can get out of it, yeah, these single player games are dying, and that's it. Like that's likely the end. You'll still get your indie games, and you'll still get like your I hate using this term, single A and double A games that will be single player only, and you'll be able to enjoy them, and that's great. But I think the time of an EA spending like millions of dollars on an RPG is over. That's not happening anymore. So unless you're, again, Square Enix, who has Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, and that's their legacy, and because they have that built-in legacy, they're guaranteed sales, then they'll do it. But other than that, no, that's not going to happen. Like you're never going to see Square Enix saying, "Hey, we're making a massive budget new JRPG." No, they're not going to do that. They're either going to make it another Final Fantasy game, or they're going to make it into a multiplayer game.
Or just, I think really, as much as it pains me to say it, just
Yeah, me
just,
too.
just I hate where a lot of the video game business is going, which is just, hey, how much money can we drain out of the users' wallets before they realize that we've duped them?
Yeah,
And I hate being cynical about that sort of stuff, but at the same time, just I hate also saying this, but just video games being so financially driven right now,
oh yeah,
it's just where the business is going, and it really hurts for me to see that, especially when you just have games that forcibly shoehorn in multiplayer, and the multiplayer just doesn't feel good. And
yeah,
I think one of the best examples of this was the 2013 reboot of Tomb Raider. Just fantastic single player adventure game, but that multiplayer game, good lord, it was the worst.
yeah.
Just did not feel good, was not fun to play, and just absolutely an awful time.
Mass Effect was another example. I think it was Mass Effect 3 that had the multiplayer that
Yes,
just
it
didn't
did.
make much sense when it was out. It was like, why are you doing this? This is weird. But yeah, there's that. But to be fair, that has less and less been an issue since I think a lot of companies who did it basically saw that, oh, no one's interested in this, so why bother? And they just scrap those. Like that's been less and less of an issue. So yeah, but you're right. Like that is unfortunate. This business is so business and finance oriented that the quote unquote artistic merit doesn't matter. Like they are so risk adverse, these gaming companies, that essentially if you do one thing that could cause enough of a problem, they'll scrap it or they'll change it. Like look at the ending to Mass Effect 3, for example. How they had to change the ending after it was released because so many people were pissed. I mean, to me, if it were me, I know I'm not the creator. I'm not the creator. Whatever. I would have said, "That's the ending. That's it. It's over." I mean, I understand you're pissed, but that's the ending. That's my vision, and that's it. Done. That'd be like someone saying, "I don't like the ending of the movie. Change it," and then they do a cut of the movie where they change the ending drastically. That would be so stupid to do. Like I just ugh. But yeah, like these companies want money so bad that they are willing to not take risks, and this is the genesis of it. Like, oh, so we'll get more money doing this, do the thing that makes more money. That's it. That's all it is. And it's going to take a crash or something for that to change. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, Zero.